I don't know that we're even live. Are we live? Loco. I don't know. It says stop streaming. We might be. This is an exciting day if we are. Are we live? Ah, we're live. All right. Let's go, guys. Okay, so what a time to be in the markets right now. We have quite a few things happening today. We're going to be looking here at Nvidia, which I'm super excited to do. And we'll go on the trading session. And let's go to Nvidia earnings report. So let's go. Big day, big day. So we're looking at Nvidia stock price. Okay. Um, and this is the crazy part is that they've beat earnings. I want to say that the last 8 consecutive quarters. So just to put that into perspective, the last time that they reported a negative earnings where they didn't beat their earnings was in quarter 3 of October 22. So a little over just about 2 years of positive earnings. Now, we saw a widespread sell off on a lot of tech today. Um, we got our week 2, week 3, the TikTok ban list. If TikTok gets banned, that's going to be an interesting. There's a lot of stocks I'm looking at there. So, guys, these are our watch lists that we have kind of put together. But yeah, November week 3. There's some political profits, of course. You know, that's something that we're seeing right now. If you guys think that there's not opportunities in political profits, you got to do some rethinking. There absolutely is. But let's get into it was technology. Kind of saw a widespread sell off today on tech, especially, Nvidia, towards the end of today. Um, if we just go on the 1 day, this is kind of the 1 day and we drop it down to a 5 minute. It's sold off. This was market open, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yes, this was market open. We've seen it sell off most of today. There's a few things you might say. Is it priced in? Are we about to see that um, this could determine a lot of the direction? Because what we've seen with Nvidia is that they've been on a tear. They're at near an all-time high. Let's just say, like right now, just kind of how it looks on the shorter term. I want to chart this up for you guys, right? But let's just look at this and objectively look at what this could mean. We're either here or we could be a little bit higher, right? We could be up even further. And this could be what we see if they don't, after 8 consecutive positive earnings, if they don't beat earnings, that downside, I don't see them breaking their pattern because I think AI has been a driving factor. But we could see them sell off similar to what we saw back here, kind of coming back from what this all-time high is down to here. And I wouldn't be surprised is if they, when we tune into this earnings call, if they don't beat earnings or their gross margins have shrunk more, which they have been shrinking a little bit, that we see it sell off down to what could be that, $120 price range. I wouldn't be surprised. However, okay, if that doesn't happen, if we see them beat earnings, okay, we could see a breakout to what could be around $160 or more. This thing could shoot up like this, and we could see it because it's almost hard to mark up because we're so down here, but it kind of would look like this, right? Oh my gosh. It's so bullish when you look at it like this. Um, it would kind of look like this. Oh my gosh. Kind of like this. And if you extended this top resistance like up to here, okay, which would be around $175 a share, and what would be probably about a $4 trillion market cap, that's kind of where it would go. It'd be like boop, like even more. And that would be like the extreme bull case of AI. Hey guys, it's crushing it. We're seeing AI absolutely become engrossed in all these industries. You see Palantir making an impact on this uptrend, and this is just the start of what we could see in AI. An interesting one that I've had my eye on and that I've done some analysis on is AMD, because a lot of people said Nvidia is the reason why AMD has sold off. However, AMD had some news about their microcomputer that was like, or their supercomputer that's crushing it, and they beat their earnings, yet they've sold off down from $225 down to $135. And like one of the articles that I read, it literally said, well, it's just not a pure play because they're only 15% of AMD is data centers and AI driven, whereas Nvidia is like 90% data centers and AI driven. So like it makes sense to go with Nvidia. And that's why even though AMD was beating earnings and continuing to develop new semiconductor products, that people were selling it. And so as we get into today, do we see it continue that upward direction? I mean, it's such an upward direction to continue. We see, is this market sell-off that we see a pricing in of what's about to happen with Nvidia? Because I think we have this euphoria. We have this euphoria with AI, which might not be full euphoria. I mean, we've seen tremendous innovation. I don't know about you guys, but I think ChatGPT has come a very long ways. I think Claude AI has come a long ways. I think a lot of these companies that are in the AI space have come a very long ways. I mean, I could go over to this chart right here, and I could delete this, and I could take a screenshot here with the RSI here and the MACD, and I could take a screenshot with the EMA on and the SMA, and have all these indicators on. Take a screenshot, drop it on ChatGPT or AI, and they will tell me, they will give me a full analysis. Right? So let's go on the shorter term. On the 5-minute, we don't see it continue its sell-off. It's starting to recover down from 143. 5-minute candlesticks looking like we're seeing some bullish uptrend into what's going to be market close in the next 30 minutes. A sell-off from, I think I have a position over on Nvidia'S. We got in right around 139 to here. We're up about 3.5%. I'm holding it's a long-term play. But we also are seeing from this top, we saw it sell down about another 2.5, or I guess it was more than that, 3.5%, and now it's recovering. Do we see it recover into earnings? We will pull it up. So I've looked at a lot of news on Nvidia. I've looked at the it says the traders brace for potential $300 billion earnings move. Earnings are on deck. What are we watching for? We are seeing a lot of weight being put on these Nvidia earnings. So I'm excited to see what happens here. What do you guys think? Comment down below. Would I recommend buying right before earnings? Well, I'll tell you what, I have a small position, and it's kind of a leveraged position in a way, because I have, which is not here, it's over on my Schwab portfolio, and honestly, I'm getting a little nervous. So if you bought right now, like, manage your risk, I guess you could say. But I also got in at a lower purchase price around, I think it was like 1780 down here, okay? And the reason why I have a position on Nvidia isn't so much that I'm anticipating a massive growth. I um I don't buy in anticipation of earnings because it's just so hard to predict, right? We could say if they beat earnings, they're going to go up. We've had companies that beat earnings but don't continue up. It's like it's so hard to gauge earnings. I think it was AMD that beat earnings and then they dropped like 20%. Um, I don't know if it was a full 20%, but so 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 as far as recommendations, I can't recommend you anything. Um, all right, so I might have my cat walk in front of the screen. Oh, he's gonna walk in front. Loco, he's like, his name's Locura or Loco. So hopefully he doesn't. He's like touching the camera. Don't bite the camera, man. Okay, so but yeah, so we see it starting to recover, continue to recover. All I'm gonna say is like pricing in what could be positive earnings. We get back to previous highs or higher. That's a 10% increase. If they beat their earnings, we're obviously going to see them push up to previous highs as they're not too far away from previous highs. I mean that I think that's kind of just goes without saying. We would see them probably soar above previous highs. And then there's the risk if they don't beat, it could also we could see a 10 to 15% decrease too. So it's like it's highly risky if you're not a long-term holder. So I would encourage you, like definitely, do your own due diligence. But anyway, this is the way that I see it, right? What do they have here? Okay, that's Truth Social. I was looking. Okay, so let me break this down for you. So like basically, this is the reason why Nvidia is a company that I've bought for many years. If I go back to my average share price, there was a time where I was paying $20 a day, and it's $20. So have you ever seen a stock that you see a lot of stocks doing good, right? And you're like, what is the thing that's making those stocks do so good? Have you ever thought like, is there another stock that makes these stocks successful? You might ask yourself that. And I think you got to ask yourself that because when we're thinking about Nvidia, is there a stock that makes for example, Tesla more successful? Is there a stock that makes Apple more successful or Google? You know? And so when you ask that question, you ask, look at the Magnificent Seven, you're like, is there a stock that these Magnificent Seven are kind of relying on? And yeah, a lot of them are relying on Nvidia. So like Nvidia does the microchips for, or like they supply the infrastructure for Tesla, for XAI, for a lot of Elon's companies, for Google and Apple, right? And so you got to ask yourself, okay, those are going to be consistent cash flows. It's like Warren Buffett recently buying Domino's Pizza. Like everybody's looking, oh, what's Warren Buffett going to buy? Is he going to buy like Nvidia? Is he going to buy Palantir? Because I mean, Palantir's making deals with Google and Amazon and the U.S. government. And I mean, that would make sense. No, Warren Buffett says, hey, it cost them 9 cents to make a pizza and they're selling it for $20. And they have all these stores and they're all operating a profit. They're not projected to massively shoot up, but they have just this cash flow that makes them a good investment. That is why Warren Buffett recently bought a Domino's Pizza stock, right? Everybody's like, what's he going to buy? The big next tech. And he buys Domino's Pizza. Like, and it just goes back to show, it's like, if you buy a company, if you buy any stock, I think this applies to trading. I'm a trader, and of course, that this is kind of a longer term approach, but I want to buy companies that do have that business model, that they're going to continue to make money and they continue to have good margins for profit. One thing that was a little concerning on Nvidia They had good gross margins, but we saw some of their gross margins shrink a little bit. Um, my cat, Loco, which you guys don't know, he's right here. What's up, buddy? He's not allowed in my office, but the reason why I have him inside is because freaking he was so scared because there's a huge storm out in California outside, and he was just like, let me in, let me in. So I'm like, all right, dude, you can come in. But I don't like to have him in here because he's furry and he's too cute. He'll distract me. All right. So we see the push up happening. This is a 5-minute candlestick chart on Nvidia. So 5 minutes is starting to push up into what will be market close in about 23 minutes. And we see 3% gain since the bottom that it hit around 11 a.m. this morning. So 3% gain. Oh, I'm sorry. That is on Nvidia'S. That's actually the stock that I'm holding. Sorry, on Nvidia, it's going to be half as much. So it's actually, yeah, about 1.5% recovery on Nvidia. But yeah, so you know, I think even if these earnings don't play out, if we see them sell off, let's say down to $120 or something like that, even if they don't play out the way that you might want from a earnings perspective as somebody that's buying right now, the company as a whole in their value has been tremendous in what they provide for Apple and Tesla, and even really pushing the likes of AMD to get more into AI and more into data centers. And they're really pushing a lot of other companies to become more AI driven, which is a little bit terrifying, but it's also really cool, right? So it's also really cool. And that's what good competition does. And so aside from that, let's see, how is Palantir doing at end of day? I was curious. Palantir's been pushing up end of day. We are in a small position, which I don't think is a political profits. We're in a small position right here on Palantir. So we see that push up a little bit. I think I was anticipating that we'd see a recovery up to somewhere in here, which would be about 13% on PTIR. So you guys might know. But I trade Palantir, and we see that one. We have PTIR, which goes up 2% every time Palantir goes up 1%. And so, yeah, we're in that position as well. It looks like they're pushing up at the end of the day today. And let's get back over to Nvidia. All right. Drop in the stock meeting picks. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. So we're seeing it push back up to what is $145 a share. Should probably get the earnings pulled up as we're about to enter the after hours trading. Thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel. I'm so grateful. We recently started doing more content related to finances and investing in tech and AI companies. And have you ever you've been really, you like something, you really want to do it, and you've always said, I really want to do this, and maybe you've dabbled, and then you actually try and do it, and you're like, oh, this is so great. It feels awesome. You know, that's exactly what it feels like doing these videos with you guys. Of course, there's days where I'm like, you know, we get up at market open every morning because we have stock meet, which is where I trade live with you guys each and every morning. It's that second link down below. And I wasn't gonna, I'm not here to pitch that. I was just telling you guys, sometimes I don't feel like getting up. Sometimes oh, I don't know if I want to do it. But you know, at the end of the day, it's like, this is so helpful and valuable for people, that I think it's just so powerful for you guys to know how to take advantage of AI and tech and invest and be invested in the space companies and AI companies. So anyway, let's get into the, is it a webcast? Is that how we do it? Is it the Nvidia webcast? Oh, that's Q4. That wasn't right. We got to go Q3 webcast. I think this is where we do the earnings. I've been an investor. Oh, now it's saying Q4. What? I thought it was Q3. All right. Well, we can try here. I don't know if this is actually the spot. Let me just make sure. Let me open a new tab. Yep, we're going to find the Nvidia earnings call as they're reporting earnings. It's going to be exciting. Okay, webcast. Nvidia Corporation. Maybe I was in the right place. It seemed I was in the right place. All right. Listen. Okay, financial results. Oh, it's after hours. Is that right? Okay. Let's make sure we get in. Ah, I was in the right place. Excellent. Huh. I see, I see. I think I have an account already. Feel free to email me. I'm not one of those guys that hides my email. Actually have it on my YouTube. And if you want to ask me any questions about investing, or anything like that, feel free. Alrighty. Did you know that we have a... Oh, what? I have to pick the actual LLC. I have to find my own LLC somewhere. All right, that's okay. Maybe I just won't put any company. Oh, I have to have it? All right. We'll change everything. There we go. Oh, see the email I used to... Okay. Did you guys notice it would be a troubleshooting into getting into the earnings call? It's hilarious. I should have just changed the thumbnail. Trying to get into the earnings call. Oh, man. Having trouble accessing the earnings call? All right. I guess I'm just going to have to do the good old test. You ever done that? You create an email and then you're like, let me use the exact same email without having to use the exact same email. You just add a plus and then you add the word test or anything else. And you can use that email. So, and there we are, Q4, verify my email. The more you know. So I guess that was valuable for you. Side note, if you ever want to get free food from like a place like Taco Bell or something like that, you can actually go sign up with a test email as such and they'll give you a free taco. And you just do it with another email. When I was broke, that's what I used to do all the time. I was working at a bank actually. I was a financial consultant, and every day at lunch I would just go. Okay, great. So we're gonna get the link to the webcast 15 minutes before the start time. All right, so we see it start to recover right after or not after hours, but as we wrap up the day here, see it push up from what was $143 up to 145, and now it's sold back down and started to recover again. Kind of looking bullish on the past, well, 25 minutes. Starting to look bullish as we enter the day. It's almost like it would be cool if, I would really like to have, I mean, I guess I could probably figure this out on stream, but kind of have they have a lot of widgets here. Like we got options chains, they got recent orders, watch lists, they got the chart here on, this is Robinhood Legend. It would be really cool if they had like a widget that you could kind of plug in different articles. I mean, I guess you can do other apps, but like they don't really have a news widget. I know it's still in beta, and they plan to add a lot more. So we'll see. So Palantir still continuing its upward direction as we had a sell-off at the start of the day. Really recovered nicely. What was 7% recovery on Palantir. And we have this pulled up here. What other news did we have about Nvidia that might be of importance? Wall Street braces for Nvidia's trillion-dollar earnings reports. Gosh, all right. So let's see the trillion-dollar earnings reports. Let's see what they have to say here. Wall Street braces for Nvidia's trillion-dollar earnings reports. So, a couple things on that title here, trillion-dollar earnings report. Nvidia market cap, I think they're around 3.5 trillion. And a large portion of the market cap, right? A large portion of it is in investments based on anticipation of growth in the AI industry. And I don't know the exact numbers. We should get those numbers, but there's intrinsic value in pure earnings and actual profits versus anticipation of demand for AI. There was a large disparity between the two. So I want to get that number. We'll get that for you in a little bit. All eyes are on Nvidia as the AI juggernaut prepares to release what could be the most consequential tech earnings of 2024. No doubt about it. Bloomberg reported that the chip giant stock could move about 8% in either direction following the results, so the earnings report. So they're saying, okay, a $300 billion shift, either up or down, is coming based on this movement that we're seeing. Now, I don't know if it's pricing in. We could see. Look at this buy here on Palantir. This is on Robinhood Legend, and we're looking at the stock. We're looking at the charts. Past 25 minutes, we've seen it push up tremendously. What is about a percentage and a half. Not tremendously as opposed to the 8% that we're about to see, but as it's pushing up here, you got to ask yourself, is this pricing in what is expected? It's not uncommon that we see a big drive in the direction that investors are expecting earnings to be right before the bell, pricing in what investors are anticipating is going to happen. And that's what happens, right? Sometimes people buy and there's not a lot of movement after the earnings, because of the pricing in, like the anticipation leading up to the earnings. So that could be something as well. So $30 billion in either direction, we'll see it shift, right? So 8% up or down. That's what Bloomberg is saying we're about to see with Nvidia. 8% I think is a little bit, I mean, that seems a little bit conservative. I mean, I don't know about other earnings reports. I think that was the average of all earnings reports. This earnings report seems a little bigger. Like right here, what was that? That was a 1-day change on Nvidia, and we saw it drop, okay, 6%, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, about 7%. Okay, 8%. All right, Bloomberg. So again, highly volatile. I saw it sell down, touch this moving average, and recover. Now, many of Nvidia's customers, particularly the cloud service providers and major enterprises, so we're talking about, you know, the apples of the world, AI chip investments, despite are prioritizing investing in AI despite broader cost-cutting measures. Kind of see it across the world, right? How many times are we seeing that you can achieve a lot of tasks in business using ChatGPT or AI, as opposed to using, per se, 2 employees? I mean, that's something we're seeing. Like, companies are saying, hey, if we buy more GPUs, there's this platform I use for a lot of my marketing. It's called Go High Level. They introduced this thing where it basically says employees, and you pay an extra certain amount, and you have these AI employees that run your company. Insane. Okay, Nvidia's market dominance. So it's a critical test. It absolutely is. If they're the number one company in the world, what does that valuation say for the rest of the companies and the rest of the AI technologies that are out there? So Nvidia, they are the backbone of the AI industry. If we see them sell off, that's kind of an indication that we could see a lot of other AI companies sell off. Bloomberg reported that customers, including Microsoft, Alphabet, so Google, Amazon, and Meta, indicated increased capital spending plans for the year ahead, pointing to continued demand for Nvidia's artificial intelligence accelerator chips. Now, there was a new chip they recently launched, which is Blackwell. There was some things that came out that chip was having some overheating problems, not due to the chip itself, but to the design of how the chip's being mounted or something like that. I expect they're going to be talking about that Blackwell chip in this earnings call. So that's one concern. But on the bullish side, again, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta indicated increased capital spending. So they're spending more on Nvidia and their artificial intelligence chips, right? So these big companies that are just below Nvidia in market cap, because Nvidia is number one. Let's take up the market cap. You got to look at the market cap as a whole, global ranking. So Nvidia is number one. And what was it? What did they say in the article? It is Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta are increasing their orders with Nvidia. So again, just to put this in perspective, $3.5 trillion market cap, number one Nvidia is, right below them is Apple, below them is Microsoft, below them is Alphabet and Amazon and Meta, all of which have been increasing their orders with Nvidia to be able to capitalize on what will be AI, right? So we're talking about, not only is this it's not like this company I don't know about like you pick a company like Apple, they have the phones, they have the App Store, and they serve most people. Nvidia isn't just it's serving people in gaming industry, but it's serving the actual companies that are serving most people. And so if they don't beat their earnings or something's not playing out right and they drop in value, um, it could be really impactful on these other companies in their valuations. So towards the end of the day today, we're seeing it push up to 145 from what was 140? Okay. And so now we're seeing, yeah, so now a little bit of consolidation, but we see it pushing up, and we are 3 minutes away from market close. I would expect we'd see some big movements right here at the end of the day in the last 3 minutes of the day. Not particularly saying this is the direction. Like if we see it push up a lot right before market close, that doesn't mean earnings is going to be a walk in the park. That doesn't mean, oh, we're just about to see it and it's pricing in. It's going to be. We don't know, but we do see it push up a little bit here before market close. Yeah, yep. It's the backbone. Absolutely. Gosh, what a smart. I mean, you got to think back to like 2021, the intelligence, the sheer. I mean, you got to give it to Nvidia because, Nvidia, we had talks of AI. People always kind of, you have the movie iRobots and things like that come out, but and you have a lot of conversation around AI for the past few years, but the fact that they positioned themselves so well right before that AI boom, they positioned their data centers, they pivoted from gaming to AI and providing for companies, and we're starting to see a little sell off here. And it's not like everybody did that. It's not like every single company did pivot. I mean, you could look at a company like AMD. They've been really hit hard the past month or so. Kind of in the opposite direction. Oh, we see a push up end of day on AMD up to 137. Excuse me. So a little bit of a recovery. But I mean, that's what you see. But like, look at that sell off from AMD down from what was 226 or $226 a share down to 138. And we're in extended hours. We're down PTIR for a small position here. We just entered this. And so my point is AMD, they're still 80% in gaming. Nvidia over the past few years shifted to providing for companies and going for AI on the upswing of getting not sick. Okay. So we're seeing it continue to push up after hours. Let's get into Nvidia on the 1 minute time frame. Extremely volatile. Little consolidation from as we enter. So this was earlier around noon. It saw it get rejected a little bit and then established that rejection, that resistance as a support. And now we see it start to push up here. As we await what's going to be that webcast link for listening to quarter three on quarter four is what it's called. Hopefully you guys are all having a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Nvidia, for those of you guys that are not familiar, Number one company in the world. Let's pull up the market cap. You could see, not are they just a number one company providing for the world, they're providing for these companies down below: Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and Tesla. And we saw that here as they, we went over it. Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta have increased their capital spending in Nvidia, right? So lot of a lot of tension riding on this earnings call here. We see them push up, so they just broke up above that 145, 146. If I'm not mistaken, somebody tell me in the chat if possible. The numbers are getting released at 2 p.m. PT time. So 2 p.m. PT time, right? So we got about, I believe that's Pacific time, 2 p.m. If you know anything different, let me know. I'm here on Nvidia, investor.nvidia.com. Okay, and that's what I'm seeing as the time for when we're going to be able to tune in and actually hear the numbers. But in anticipation of this, we're seeing there was some consolidation, now kind of pushing up to another level. What we see here is there's a previous resistance right here. Okay. Right at, what is that, $146 a share. So I'd imagine it's going to push up. It may retest a little bit before, if it continues up, that's the next level. Excuse me. I was trying to get that. Okay. So that's the next level. Kind of that 146.70. Highly volatile end of day. We're seeing it push up. It might make it. If it makes it, I mean, that brings us, this is the level that it needs to reach. We could see there was a support on the 20th earlier today. So this is that resistance that needs to break above. Technically, obviously, we're seeing some push up. I'm in a position here on Palantir, PTIR. We see it sell off a little bit. It's okay. We're also on a position on Nvidia'S. Let me pull it up so you guys know. Nvidia'S goes up 2% every time. Nvidia goes up 1%. I don't advise you guys invest right before earnings. I've had this position for a while. I think my average purchase price was somewhere around here, $17. And I have it in my Schwab portfolio. I know it's risky to be there in earnings, but I have an okay position. Okay. So I'm okay with it, but gotta be careful right around earnings, guys. It's definitely a time that gotta be careful. So again, we see it retesting that 146. Next level after that. So let's actually back this up a little bit. Go to the 1 month and drop it to the 4 hour. So if this is a true bull uptrend and we just take a look at kind of what that looks like, we go from the top trend to the bottom. And, oh, this is a hard one, right? Because we can't even, it's so bullish that we can't even really, oh, I guess we can. It's just hard. It would be somewhere right there, right? So then that would mean best entry would be right around here. So, okay, Fibonacci retracement says this golden ratio right here between 144 and 145 would be where we enter. I love looking at this, but I mean, you guys know we're looking at this with a grain of salt, because this is what we see at the end of the day is this push up, but we're actually here for what is the earnings call. We see it start to, wow, okay. End of day, we saw it push up. Again, that retest is happening. So we would see that retest before pushing up to this previous resistance, which is actually right here. If it pushes up there, then we could see it, be at 146.50. Kind of bullish end of day movement. We talked about it possibly pricing in for what's about to be a positive earnings that come out at 2 p.m. Pacific time today. Outside of the chart, if we look back here, let's see if there's any must know breaking news or anything like that. It's so crazy. Sometimes you have something come out like this chip or this happened right before earnings as well. So super microcomputer, I had some people asking me about that company. Something you should know in relation to Nvidia, super microcomputer was about to get delisted, and then they just recently announced that they are not going to get delisted. Okay, so that shot their stock up, I don't know, 10-15%. However, Nvidia recently announced that they are not, I repeat, they are not going to work with super microcomputer anymore because they were very unhappy with the financial accounting and the way the super microcomputer was interacting with Nvidia on orders and not fulfilling their side of their order promptly. And so Nvidia actually cut ties with super microcomputer, the company based out of San Jose, California. And so I would not buy super microcomputer at all. I wouldn't touch this stock. It's been highly volatile. Wow, so we just saw what was a drop to $44 on Nvidia, about a 1% drop before recovery. And now we are seeing the volatility really kick in here. Probably do something more like a 3 minutes. Yeah, let me know down below what you guys are seeing with Nvidia. Somebody says hopefully it's bullish. It's so interesting. Isn't that fascinating? Some of the biggest moves that happen with stocks are right around earnings. And it's one of those things where let's say we see it drop 8%, because that's what, according to Bloomberg, the volatility index, and factoring in the short term, and if they don't beat earnings and everything else, is saying they're going to drop either 8% or they're going to increase by 8%, right? Now, let's say they drop 8%. I actually just want to really kind of look at that. Let's just say they drop 8%. Okay, what is that? What is 8% from here? We're at 145. We see them drop 8%. They're going to drop down to 132. Guys, if they drop down to 132, and I'm not saying that they're going to absolutely miss earnings, but if they do, there's pretty clear line here. See this resistance, see the support right around 132. That it wouldn't be crazy if they do drop down to 132 to just see them simply bounce and continue their upward direction. I mean, it's not like we're sitting here saying this is the make it or break it for Nvidia. AI is not going to be anywhere in 5 years if they don't beat these earnings. And this is the most special day in all of the elections and everything that has to do with the stock market. I'm not saying that, but even if they sell off here, it's like, okay, they're cash flowing. You have a lot of the big companies relying on them, like Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet. So they make the chips. They provide for Apple. They provide for Microsoft, definitely for ChatGPT. They provide for Google and Amazon, and also for Meta and Tesla. And you can see in the article that we were just looking at a minute ago, where they were talking about how basically all these companies are are kind of relying on Nvidia as well, in that they increased their orders and what they were buying, that they would like to buy more infrastructure for AI from Nvidia in the coming year, 2025. So again, if it sells off, it does. That's what we could see. And if it sells off 8%, that's what it is. For this thing to really break pattern, I mean, it would almost be seen as not terribly unhealthy if we saw it break to that 8%. I mean, look at that trend. It's not perfect, right? But if it dropped below, if it dropped from here down 8% to this point, what would be an 8% according to Bloomberg, then, we're still at a point where it's a support or a resistance, and the overall direction, in my eyes, kind of looks up. I mean, we could even see, like, let's say, it's like that. It drops down. The overall direction would be up. Okay, so it's not terrible. It's the 10 or 20% drop that would probably shake things up, because if we had a 10 or 20% drop on Nvidia, we'd be looking down here. And this is where, when we get to 20%, there is a support right here. You see the support? So here's some a resistance, right? Here's a support. Okay, it's right at around 114, 115. There it is again. Some consolidation. There it is again. And then here it is, some consolidation out of support right here. Pretty clear level, right? If it drops there, which would be 19%, 20%, now we're talking about what could be a more of a break in overall direction. And if that happened, then the next level that we could see it get to, then we're looking at that next support. And that one's like 35% or more in downward direction, right? That's when we say, here's a resistance right there at $28 resistance. Here's some support or consolidation. There's that support. Yes, it could be a little bit lower, but yeah, looks about right there. Okay, and so now, we're talking about, 35% if it breaks that support. And then we're really looking like, well, we could be looking at a really great buy. So, but if we see it go up, we're looking at a lot more of a recovery. And so the recovery, or the continuation, I think the estimates were like 155 to 165. And what we just saw is a recent sell-off. We saw a little bit of a sell-off and then a recovery. You can see it's still pushing up above about 146 there. I think it started the day around 147, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it started the day right here around 147.50. Dropped down to 142. So, what are you guys thinking? What do you see on Nvidia? Do you guys got any feedback for me on Nvidia? Are you invested before earnings? Are you buying before earnings? I personally have a small position that I've grown over in my Charles Schwab, so I'm kind of invested here. They say that you should never buy before earnings. They tell you don't buy a stock right before earnings because it is very dangerous and highly volatile. And they also say that AI is a bubble, right? I'm hearing it time and time again. You know, AI is way up. Nvidia is #1 company in the world. They are overvalued, right? You hear it all the time. And so, you know, that's what they tell you, and you got to ask yourself, is that the truth, or is there more run for AI? You see, I think it was we were looking at, I think it was either Elon or I don't know if it was Jensen, or I don't know who it was, but I was listening to them say that the capital investments in AI was still extremely low. They said it was lower, and this is what we were looking at on the channel actually, that it was lower in capital investment compared to other times in innovation, whether it was the dot-com bubble or dot-com investments in the late 90s, um, or housing in 2007 or things like that, and that they were saying that it was still untapped in, and that's kind of what we've seen, right, in AI. So how many of you guys are in it? Are you guys in Nvidia, and are you saying, oh my gosh, here we go? um I have a small position, like I said. I'm expecting that they are going to just beat their earnings a tiny bit, and that their stock's not going to do much. But Bloomberg, they say that it could be an 8% decrease or increase. So they're saying it's going to be highly, highly volatile, and we could see it happen. We could see it happen. Um, what they don't tell you though is that your investments in tech, your investments in Nvidia, for the long term, you have a lot of companies that are relying on Nvidia, and that's why they've soared to #1. You have a lot of companies that are relying on Nvidia. So you have um, like Apple, you got Tesla, XAI, among others. And so don't discredit that. If you're investing in it, it's not a bad look. Um, it's not a bad look. Okay. So what I'm so excited for about this is that we can see it really, really either push up the AI boom, and we see, like, if this does well, you see stocks like Palantir do better. You see probably a recovery on AMD stock, and you see all these stocks start to recover, and you probably see more of investments from companies in AI, some more confidence in AI, and then and so that's what we could see. They're saying that, look, Nvidia has beat earnings 8 quarters in a row. If they and they're not going to beat these earnings. That's what a lot of the companies are saying, is that, look, it's been 8 quarters in a row. Oh my gosh. Wow. Here is a sell-off. Down to 140, 139. 138. Current price 140 or 130. Yeah, 140. Wow, what a spike down to 139. Here we go. So are we seeing it price in? This might be the most volatile day in the history of Nvidia. So we just saw a sell-off down 5% on Nvidia, down to 139. Now, remind you guys, just a friendly reminder, we heard from, I think it was Bloomberg, that we could see a sell-off of 8%, okay, or an increase of 8%. So if I'm not mistaken, we haven't even heard the results yet. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, we haven't even heard the results yet. And make sure I'm not crazy. Yeah, it's 122. So we have our quarter results, sorry, here. November 20th at 2 p.m. PT, which is in 37 minutes. We saw just a recent sell-off down to 137 before recovering up to what is 143. And now we're at 143. Wow. Wow. Look at that volatility. Yeah, so 5% swing and then a recovery, what was 4.5%. We expected some volatility. You got to wonder what's going through the minds of these. Like, we might have, a hedge fund or something. A hedge fund is we had some big players selling right here. I don't think your average retail investors investing are going to be, you know, impacting a price movement on Nvidia like this. We had some big players sell this down in the matter of, these are 30-second time candlesticks. 1, 2, 3, just about 3 or 4 minutes here, where it sold down 5.5% and recovered back. You had some big sells. You gotta think, what are the hedge funds doing right now that they're saying, oh, or the institutions are saying, all right, we're gonna sell down, and it goes down to 138, and then it gets bought back even before we get the report. When it comes down to earnings reports, we're always expecting it to be volatile. And this is one of those times it looks more volatile than your average earnings report, I'd say. We just saw a 5% swing, 5.5% swing up to now, or all the way back up, and then really selling off now down to 143. Just to put that in perspective, we're looking here on Nvidia, but what about over on Nvidia'S, which goes up 2% every time Nvidia goes up 1%? That swing that just happened, like, let's say you bought the dip just now and wrote it, all right, let's say to the price, that's a 7% gain. What would be a 12% gain in the other direction? So yeah, so you got to put that into some perspective there. You got to put that in perspective. I don't think any other stocks are moving the way Nvidia is moving right now. Nope, this is full independence on its own. Did we see any big sell-offs or anything take place? Saw a little bit of a sell-off here on and a recovery on pounds here, but we get back into Nvidia again. So we're anticipating earnings happening in just about 30 minutes. We see that it has sold off 146 down to 138 and back again to 142. What are we looking for and why are we live streaming? I'm anticipating that it's going to be kind of like a what we saw with Bloomberg, that we could see an 8% swing. I mean, we already saw a 5% swing before this earnings report. Um, but I'm kind of anticipating that we're going to see some volatility. And as a holder of Nvidia, and as someone that is getting you guys the best information to invest in tech and AI assets, this is just one of those things where I want to know, a lot of the overall direction of the market in AI and in tech in the near term has a lot sitting on this earnings call and on Nvidia here in the short term. It's near term. I think long term we see growth, but it's still, it's a very sensitive time. Down to 141 now. Last time Nvidia was at 141 was yesterday. We had somewhat of a rally leading up to market close to 146 from 143, and then at market close it was consolidating, and then we saw it sell off what was 5.5%. Now we see it recovering. We saw a slow in demand for, and I'm just kind of looking here, based on what we hear. On Semiconductor reported earnings about a month ago. Okay, so there's a semiconductor company out of Arizona, I believe. And they saw quite a spike today, actually. Kind of a recovery there for On Semi. And, when they reported earnings, they said something really interesting. They said that the demand that they were seeing for their microchips was not as strong as previous quarters, and that they were expecting somewhat of a decline over the next few months. Now they supply for autonomous driving a little bit on Semiconductor. I know they supply some for Volkswagen, among others. But that kind of like, you hear that from a semiconductor company. And then you see a company like AMD, a really big semiconductor kind of company, right? And we saw them really sell off past few months, right? Down from 226 down to 138. And, we also had TSM, right? Taiwan Semiconductor had sold off quite a bit the past few months. And so, we get into Nvidia now, right? They're at what is near an all-time high. They've had 8 consecutive quarters of positive earnings. And now we're looking and we're saying maybe the demand is slowing a little bit on semiconductors. But on the other hand, you had Elon meeting with CEO of Nvidia, and they were talking, and I remember he was saying we're going to need more, and they were placing orders with Nvidia. There was also some articles that Apple was placing orders, that Meta was placing orders with Nvidia, So you have some of the bigger companies maybe getting their infrastructure right for 2025. And what makes up most of the revenue for Nvidia is the company, the business to business transactions that they have with those companies. Um, and so, and Google as well. We could include Google in there as well as buying Nvidia. So, as we get into, maybe this could surprise. Maybe you had those companies saying, hey, we really need to ramp up some orders for 2025. We need that infrastructure for AI. And so those companies like Apple, like Amazon and Google did spend more with Nvidia. And that's what we would expect a little bit. We saw all of those companies in their recent quarterly earnings reports that they were investing more in AI. They didn't, give receipts and say it was on Nvidia GPUs and that's what we were spending our money. Like they didn't say that, obviously, but you had them investing more in AI. So what does that do for Nvidia? Well, maybe that hasn't been priced in, and a lot of those orders from those big tech companies are going to reflect in this earnings report here with Nvidia, and it is going to increase their sales, and those companies are increasing their infrastructure for AI, and that's what we're about to see. One of the struggles with predicting earnings is you almost can never look inside the company to find earnings predictions. It's almost always you have to look with their collaborators and what companies they work with or the industry that they're in. AI as a whole, we've seen really take off this year. Was there enough demand that takeoff spiked enough urgency in big tech to say, hey, we need to invest more in 2025? And that comes at the expense of us pouring money into Nvidia, and Nvidia's going to see that reflect in their earnings. And so what I'm saying is, a lot of times when we're looking at earnings reports and we're looking at whether or not a company, like, we could have looked at, a lot of times we look at what are their relations with other companies and how is that, what can we draw based on deductive reasoning, right? We could say we don't have this, but let's look over here. What can we mark out? Do we know their relationship with Amazon? Do we know their relationship with Meta? Did Amazon or did Tesla talk about having more of an emphasis on AI and building out their infrastructure for the next year? Yeah, they did. So that might tell you, well, if their go-to company is Nvidia. But you could look at a company like Supermicro Computer. I think we were looking at them and someone was saying, well, and as we see this candlestick opened green, we'll see if it continues up. A lot of volatility here before the earnings. Supermicro Computer, one of the mistakes that I think a lot of people made, because their company has been highly volatile and they dropped, I think, 10% on earnings or something like that. Maybe it's 15%. I gotta actually look at that. We could pull that up, but they did drop a lot. And I think one of the main reasons why wasn't because you looked at Supermicro Computers, SEC struggles and the challenges they're having with not getting all their 10K report out and everything else, but it actually came down to the companies that they're working with and what their relations are with those companies. And they could say, well, Nvidia, which is one of the biggest players in AI, recently had slowed, if not completely terminated, their partnership with Supermicro Computer. And that was news that came out before earnings. Now, after earnings, saw it sell off a lot. But, I think we could look at that here, that same principle of, we can't do analogies. We can't say, well, hey, it's been 8 in a row. It's probably bound to go up this quarter. Like, we don't know that, right? Or we could say, well, if we're truly in an AI boom, then 2025 is about, yeah, they're all analogy, like you can do that. But if we take more of a first principles approach, right, and we're like, what is it that we know and we have facts about for Nvidia? I would I would argue that they are going to see an increase in their stock price as a direct result of the increased spending in their partnerships and the companies that they work with that have invested more in AI infrastructure, which includes GPUs and includes Nvidia's services and their data centers and things like that. And that could draw us to a conclusion that they're most likely going to like meet or exceed earnings if there was an increased spending. And I was just looking at an article, I think it was right here. We were looking at, I think it was like the $1 trillion earnings report. The $1 trillion earnings reports. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So the $1 trillion earnings report. And somewhere in here, there was research done. I think it was Bloomberg. Okay. There was some uncertainty in their new launch with the Blackwell chip. We did read that. But what I was interested in. Okay. Bloomberg reported that customers, including Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta, indicated increased spending capital for their plans for the year ahead, pointing to continued demand for Nvidia's artificial intelligence accelerator chips. Okay, so in other words, the big magnificent six underneath number 7 here on the market cap, right? We got Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Tesla, Meta. They're increasing their spending in the services offered by Nvidia. So we see this sell-off right here after hours, 142 a share, about 20 minutes away from the earnings report. And I will gonna keep you guys so I was actually thinking, I was like, I actually almost have to like figure out how I can I think I have it streaming to where you guys can get the audio from here and you can actually hear everything when we open up the earnings call here. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear what they have to say, and you guys can actually hear the earnings call here when it launches in 20 minutes. And I don't know if we're going to see this price in. It's going to continue in one direction. I mean, it's been selling off since before the earnings call. It almost makes you wonder, like, wow, are we seeing a big discount price right before they beat earnings? That's an interesting one. Or is it pricing in anticipation of them missing earnings? Excuse me. Palantir is still dropping, holding there. We'll see Nvidia. Yeah, it's sold off. We'll see. We got 20 minutes until some of the things I think are important to do when investing in Nvidia is patience. I think someone that's probably wants to get Nvidia, wants to capitalize on anything, I would encourage you to just like take a minute, take a step back, be like, do I really need to get this potentially 8% gain when it could also drop 8%? You know, you got to think about that because you probably don't want to risk it. And I'll tell you why. Like, let's look at, you know, Nvidia. Of course, we could see it continue its upward direction. There's almost this trend for upward direction that we could see it, you know, continue up. But when it comes to Nvidia, we're at an all-time high. We're right here just below their all-time high. I mean, look at Nvidia, man. If you're buying right now and you don't plan to hold for a very long time, you have to think about that, right? It's at an all-time high, right? And of course, just because something's cheap doesn't make it a good deal, and just because something's expensive doesn't make it a bad deal. Um, but think about that. If you're like trying to get in right before earnings, just think about that. Now, everybody's here because they want to make their money work for them. Everybody's here because they want to make more money from the money that they have, right? And that's why I'm here. Hopefully I can help you do the same. But what I would say is, like, when it comes to earnings, either you have to have a tremendous temperament, or because you have after hours trading, like I could buy, sell very quickly here if I need to. Because that's how it works on Robinhood Legends. But if you're just doing it on your phone, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, right? So you'd have to have some focus. You have to have some chill time where you could sit down and, like, I'm gonna have to go get some water or something because, like, I'm sitting here. I have some coffee. Coffee's good enough, I guess. Um, but we're sitting here, and it's like you have to have some time to really chill, be able to just focus if you're invested. If we see it be earnings, at this point, it would be around, I think, around a 12% increase in the stock. Reason being, we saw it sell off about 4 or 5%. Let's see. Okay, we saw it sell off a little bit less than that. We saw it sell off about 5 or 6%, but now the sell off is about 2.5% as we see it start to push up here. So 10% increase could be expected if they beat earnings. And the reason why is, I mean, if you just look at the numbers, look at the market cap, it's about a $300 billion expected move, either upwards or downwards, which would equate to approximately 8% upwards or downwards from the price that we closed at, which I believe was right around 145.50. So that's kind of the math there. And so since we sold off 2%, that would mean to gain would be about 10% if it beats earnings from this point right here. We're about 15 minutes away from the earnings call. Now, if we don't beat earnings, according to that math of the $300 billion market cap factored in, and we've sold off 2%, we'd see a continued sell off of 6%, which would put us, I think, at 134, if I'm not mistaken. 134 a share. For those of you that are extremely gutsy, I've been holding this stock for a while, and I'm a little gutsy because I've been in it and I have a good position on it. But Nvidia'S goes up 2% every time Nvidia goes up 1%. This is not financial advice or anything like that. But if you really wanted your money to work so hard that it may either have tremendous results or have a heart attack, then Nvidia'S would be the place to go. So we see it start to recover, continuing its upward recovery. The volatility has slowed a little bit here after that really crazy 5 minutes from like 120 to 125. We saw like 2 or 3 5% swings. What I'm imagining, so like what this looks like for tomorrow, if we see Nvidia sell off, it could be a really great buy tomorrow. If we see it beat earnings and they increase, I would imagine that tomorrow morning, if they sold off As sometimes that happens, like right at market open, we could see a sell-off. I might be looking to buy Nvidia more, increase my position tomorrow morning. But I would want to do it after earnings probably. If you guys want to watch me trade live, we have Stockmate, which is our community. It's that second link down below. And there's a great holiday link or holiday coupon if you want to watch me trade live every morning. Almost every market open, I'm there. And we also have a community of traders and investors, as well as 70 plus lessons on technical and fundamental analysis. So just friendly reminder, it's that second link down below. What I would expect though is that we're going to see either again 4 or 5% sell off right now, or we're going to see what could be a 12% increase. We already saw it price in what was looking like a price in of, and I say price in meaning the price adjusted in anticipation of an event. You see it happen all the time. Kind of saw this anticipated right before market close. It was pushing up because people are saying, oh, it's going to go up. They're about to beat earnings. And then after market, there's, after market hours, then you have people saying, it's gonna sell off. Let's sell before the earnings call. And yet it dropped 5% and now a recovery. And now we're kind of just sitting between that right at a previous support of 143.20. Current price is 143.40. Still in the red here on the day, about 2.5%. But yeah, we got 12 minutes before the earnings call. So we'll be taking a look. There was a few other things that I saw as AI becomes more ubiquitous, the myriad legal and moral discussions around technology will become more pressing issues for regulators, right? So it's like as they get more power, regulation will become more of a question. And as we know, with our current administration, regulation will also become less of a priority. Big reason why you had Elon Musk supporting the right side was because in the event that he has that Republican, more conservative approach, he's looking at what would be less regulation for his company like SpaceX or Starlink, which would be in favor. Or, for example, Tesla, the self-driving. And same thing's true with AI. Okay. Across the Magnificent Seven, we now have an AI sector with quarterly revenues approaching the GDP of some European nations at more than 450 billion. Monumental amounts of financial firepower. Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm glad that you're learning from the channel. Still, it's great. A couple recent things I've been doing here on the chart. I do a lot of buy limits. I do these like bracket orders where I'll have my sell stop or my stop loss. It's really great platform. What I've noticed too, kind of a quick thing on Robinhood Legend when you're trading. I think it was yesterday I was trading a stock after hours, right? Because they have 24-hour trading, as I could trade this right now as long as it's whole shares and it's at a limit price that gets filled. And I was looking at it, and the stock here, I could, obviously visualize it on the 1 minute as I'm visualizing Nvidia right here. But on the phone, you weren't able to see any of the price movements after hours, really, or after a certain point. It was like an hour or two after hours, you couldn't really see anything real time. And so I just thought that was really interesting. It made me want to trade more with Robinhood Legend. I mean, every single morning I trade with I had a market open with Robinhood Legend. It's like my thing. I love it. And I also put together how to get it early if you guys don't have the beta. It's that first link in the description. Totally free. You can grab it there. But yeah, no, that's been good. I like the widget linkage. I've been, when I have multiple widgets or multiple monitors, I'm traveling. I've been going all over the country, places like that. So it's like I don't have the ability to have a lot of monitors right now. Just one monitor for the most part is how I'm kind of doing it. But when I do at some point, when I settle down with a more trading setup and I'm not traveling a lot, that'll be kind of cool. Even though I don't like that. You know how you see like some traders and they have like 20 monitors open and you're like, how do you even make a how do you even make a good decision? But I don't know. It kind of works too. It sometimes it works. It's like Magnus Carlsen, like chess player playing like 8 people at once, and he's just that good. I don't know. For me, I'm so well. I guess I have like 3 positions at once sometimes, as you guys see in our lives. But for the most part, I'm not normally more than like 3 positions at once. Um, I don't know. Tell me if have you guys ever had just a ton of positions that you're literally actively trading, like you're not holding, you're actually actively trading? That would be wild. So we're about 7 minutes away from this event. All right. We can join the webcast. I might have to be quiet because people are going to be talking. Ooh, here we go, fellas. They have like a picture of something really cool. I don't know what it is in the background, but it would be funny if they had like this upward trend in the background where you're like, whoa. They just they make their thumbnail of their quarterly earnings the results like nonchalantly. That would be hilarious. All right, let's plug in. Need to get my headphones so I know you guys can hear everything. And we will begin. Here we go. I think what I'll do is I'll bring up the chart. Hopefully this looks all right, guys. We're going to bring up Robinhood Legend. Well, they got that music that when you hear it, you're like, I think everything's going to be okay, whether they report positive or negative earnings. You know that vibe? You're like, no matter what, life is good. Here we go. Are you ready? All right, we're seeing a push up now. All right, here we go. So we got about 4 minutes before they tune in. And right now we are seeing a recovery from we just look on the 15-minute, kind of give us a better idea. We saw it sell down quite a bit and then recover. Now we're here on the 1-minute charts as we start to see Nvidia kind of continue its upward direction, maybe before what will be a positive earnings or negative earnings. We will see. Still in the green here. Let me know if you guys can hear everything okay. You're able to hear that earnings call. If I need to turn things up. Yeah, you know, the update that we see on the Robinhood Legend, so it updates like so fast. It's faster than what you see for the updates on your mobile phone, right? So because they have like the 1-minute candlestick charts and everything else. So and you don't even see the price movements. I'm talking about not just the price movements. I'm talking about the actual price that displays on your Robinhood phone on your app. Like after hours, let's say that they closed at like 145. Sometimes your phone will show 145 for that whole day, right? Or it'll like be going kind of up and down. But over on Robinhood Legend, when you're looking on the 1-minute chart or the 3-minute chart, you see that it just dropped to 141 and went up to 148 and went up to 144 or something like that. So it does change drastically over on Robinhood Legends at a current real-time increment. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, so I'll do some more stuff on Robinhood Legend for you guys. Let me know if you have specific questions. I really like using the platform. I use it every single day. Absolutely. And the love is real, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you all. I don't know if you guys know all of this history of the channel, but I used to be a full-time artist. I still make art. And my wife is an artist. She's actually a full-time artist. She has hundreds of thousands of followers. And she does music. But for me, I really, really like doing the financial markets. It's like my favorite thing in the world. I just get excited for things like this that start in 1 minute. So that's why about half a month ago, I decided to, I guess it was about a month ago, I decided to do more financial content. So if you guys do like and subscribe, I appreciate it. And if you want to watch me trade live at Market Open every day, we have Stockmates, that first or second link, sorry, in the description. So we see it push up to $145 a share. They are just about to start this live stream. It's 2 o'clock. So we will see. And I'll turn it up for you guys as soon as they begin to talk.
Good afternoon. My name is Jael and I'll be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to Nvidia's third quarter earnings call. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, simply press star followed by the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the star 1 again. Thank you. Stuart Stecker, you may begin your conference.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to NVIDIA's conference call for the third quarter of fiscal 2025.
Let me know you can hear.
With me today from NVIDIA are Jensen Huang, President and Chief Executive Officer, and Colette Kress, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. I'd like to remind you that our call is being webcast live on NVIDIA's Investor Relations website. The webcast will be available for replay until the conference call to discuss our financial results for the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025. The content of today's call is NVIDIA's property. It can't be reproduced or transcribed without our prior written consent. During this call, we may make forward-looking statements based on current expectations. These are subject to a number of significant risks and uncertainties, and our actual results may differ materially. For a discussion of factors that could affect our future financial results and business, Please refer to the disclosure in today's earnings release, our most recent Forms 10-K and 10-Q, and the reports that we may file on Form 8-K with the Securities and Exchange Commission. All our statements are made as of today, November 20, 2024, based on information currently available to us. Except as required by law, we assume no obligation to update any such statements. During this call, we will discuss non-GAAP financial measures. You can find a reconciliation of these non-GAAP financial measures to GAAP financial measures in our CFO commentary, which is posted on our website.
You wonder if it
With
goes
that,
up
let me
or
turn the
down.
call over to Colette.
If it goes up and
Thank you,
down
Stuart.
based on like their undertones.
Incredible growth. Revenue of $35.1 billion was up 17% sequentially
Let's
and
go.
up 94% year on year,
Revenue is up.
and well above our outlook of $32.5 billion. All market platforms posted strong sequential and year-over-year growth, fueled by the adoption of NVIDIA accelerated computing and AI. Starting with data center, another record was achieved in data center. Revenue of $30.8 billion, up 17% sequential and up 112% year on year. NVIDIA Hopper demand is exceptional, and sequentially, NVIDIA H200 sales increased significantly to double-digit billions, the fastest product ramp in our company's history. The H200 delivers up to 2x faster inference performance
Sounds
and
good.
up to 50 improved TCO. Cloud service providers were approximately half of our data center sales, with revenue increasing more than 2x year on year. CSPs deployed NVIDIA H200 infrastructure and high-speed networking with installations scaling to tens of thousands of GPUs to grow their business and serve rapidly rising demand for AI training and inference workloads. NVIDIA H200-powered cloud instances are now available from AWS, CoreWeave, and Microsoft Azure, with Google Cloud and OCI coming soon.
Right.
Alongside significant growth from our large CSPs.
So, quick note, they went up because they also had significant investment from Google and Amazon in anticipation of 2025.
More than doubled year on year as companies scaled their NVIDIA Hopper infrastructure to support next-generation AI models, training, multimodal and agentic AI, deep learning recommender engines.
With these earnings that they're beating, they need to increase spend on their microphones for higher quality.
Revenue growth for customers. NVIDIA is the largest inference platform in the world. Our large installed base and rich software ecosystem encourage developers to optimize for NVIDIA and deliver continued performance and TCO improvements. Rapid advancements in NVIDIA software algorithms boosted Hopper inference throughput by an incredible 5x in 1 year and cut time to first token by 5x. Our upcoming release of NVIDIA NIM will boost Hopper inference performance by an additional 2.4x. Continuous performance optimizations are a hallmark of NVIDIA and drive increasingly economic returns for the entire NVIDIA installed base. Blackwell is in full production after a successfully executed mass change.
That's good, because Blackwell was the thing we were wondering. They had some trouble with Blackwell, but they're saying it's going well.
GX engineering samples to OpenAI.
So they're supplying to OpenAI at Microsoft.
AI data center scale system with customizable configurations needed to address a diverse and growing AI market. From x86 to ARM, training to inferencing GPUs, InfiniBand to Ethernet switches, and NVLink, and from liquid-cooled to air-cooled. Every customer is racing to be the first to market. Blackwell is now in the hands of all of our major partners, and they are working to bring up their data centers. We are integrating Blackwell systems into the diverse data center configurations of our customers. Blackwell demand is staggering, and we are racing to scale supply to meet the incredible demand customers are placing on us. Customers are gearing up to deploy Blackwell at scale. Oracle announced the world's first Zettascale AI cloud computing clusters that can scale to over 131,000 Blackwell GPUs to help enterprises train and deploy some of the most demanding next-generation AI models.
Let's see.
Yesterday, Microsoft announced they will be the first CSP to offer, in private preview, Blackwell-based cloud instances powered by NVIDIA GB200
All right,
and Quantum InfiniBand.
Guys, we
Last
see
week, Blackwell
that they actually beat their earnings per share. The expected was 0.75, so 75 cents a share. They came in at 81 cents, so they did beat their earnings per share.
drive down the cost of compute. Just 60
But they have some good stuff on their new launches that I want to hear.
free benchmark compared to 256 H100s, or a 4x reduction in cost. NVIDIA Blackwell architecture with NVLink switch enables up to 30x faster inference performance and a new level of inference scaling throughput and response time that is excellent for running new reasoning inference applications like OpenAI's O1 model. With every new platform shift, a wave of startups is created. Hundreds of AI native companies are already delivering AI services with great cursor and a bridge.
Wow.
Are seeing great success.
Guys, when you hear all these thousands of AI startups that are using NVIDIA, it's pretty awesome. That's pretty good for them. So the thing is, we're going to see AMD become a key player as well. So NVIDIA is saying all these companies, Microsoft and OpenAI, that's part of Microsoft, and Google, and all these companies, they're all using NVIDIA. But we also just saw a new release from AMD, which is big. I'm going to check it out. When you said that NVIDIA has a price of $145.10 on your mobile app, but on Robinhood Legend, it has $145.90. That's simply put, they're on different APIs. So from what I can understand, you have more real-time data over on Robinhood Legends as opposed to over on just the app. And that's why the difference in price can happen. That's why we trade live with Robinhood Legend a lot of times. I'm gonna keep sharing what she said here.
Additionally, Accenture, with over 770,000 employees, is leveraging NVIDIA-powered agentic AI applications internally, including one case that cuts manual steps in marketing campaigns by 25 to 35%. Nearly 1,000 companies are using NVIDIA NIM, and the speed of its uptake is evident in NVIDIA AI Enterprise monetization. We expect NVIDIA AI Enterprise full-year revenue to increase over 2x from last year, and our pipeline continues to build.
Oh my gosh, you guys hear that? Not only do they beat earnings, not only are they up, we're also hearing that they're saying, hey, it's going to go up 2x by next year. That's what we're expecting. Robotics are accelerating. AI is accelerating. These companies, they want to buy more from us because in 2025, they're going to need more infrastructure. They're saying, we're building NVIDIA for not just the companies, but for developers, for robotic companies, for some of the largest industrial manufacturers in the world. Like, we're seeing it happen. Wow. So good for AI, good for tech. We're going to see a lot of this reflect in the market for a lot of the other tech companies. I'm expecting movements on semiconductor and AMD, probably in Symbotic Robotics. We've seen them go up from $28 a share to $35 a share. I don't know about Rocket Lab. I imagine they're using some NVIDIA. AMD was being used in Starlink and in SpaceX, so they're probably going to go up some. Apple increasing their orders with Nvidia. We saw Microsoft definitely with OpenAI, as well as Elon meeting with Jensen on what was getting more AI chips and more GPUs for XAI. So it's a big moment. But let's get back into it. I want to hear what they have to say here about the markets in China.
We will continue to comply with export controls while serving our customers. Our sovereign AI initiatives continue to gather momentum as countries embrace NVIDIA accelerated computing for a new industrial revolution powered by AI. India's leading CSPs include Tata Communications and Zoda Data Services are building
Now
AI
talking
factories
about
for tens of thousands
India.
of NVIDIA GPUs.
Oh no, Nvidia.
By
Sorry.
year end, they will have boosted NVIDIA GPU deployments in the country by nearly 10x. Infosys, TSC, Wipro are adopting NVIDIA AI Enterprise and upskilling nearly 500,000 developers and consultants to help clients build and run AI agents on our platform. In Japan, SoftBank is building the nation's most powerful AI supercomputer with NVIDIA DGX Blackwell and Quantum InfiniBand. SoftBank is also partnering with NVIDIA to transform the telecommunications network into a distributed AI network with NVIDIA AI Aerial, an AREN platform that can process both 5G RAN on AI on CUDA. We are launching the same in the US with T-Mobile. Leaders across Japan, including Fujitsu, NEC, and NTT, are adopting NVIDIA AI Enterprise, and major consulting companies, including EY, Strategy and Consulting, will help bring NVIDIA AI technology to Japan's industries. Networking revenue increased 20% year on year. Areas of sequential revenue growth include InfiniBand and Ethernet switches, SmartNICs, and Bluefield DPUs. Though networking revenue was sequentially down, networking demand is strong and growing, and we anticipate sequential growth in Q4. CSPs and supercomputing centers are using and adopting the NVIDIA InfiniBand platform to power new H200 clusters. NVIDIA Spectrum-X Ethernet for AI revenue increased over 3x year on year, and our pipeline continues to build with multiple CSPs and consumer internet companies planning large cluster deployments.
Yeah.
Traditional Ethernet was not designed for AI.
Right.
NVIDIA
So they're taking on Ethernet, okay? And also, just to mention, they're taking on the space industry, because if they're taking on broadband and they're taking on internet, now you have companies like they're going to compete with AMD. AMD just signed a deal with Starlink to provide microchips for Starlink and processors. So let's see.
Versus 60% for traditional Ethernet. Now moving to gaming and AI PCs. Gaming revenue of $3.3 billion increased 14% sequentially and 15% year on year. Q3 was a great quarter for gaming, with notebook, console, and desktop revenue all growing sequentially and year on year. RTX end demand was fueled by strong back-to-school sales as consumers continue to choose GeForce RTX GPUs and devices to power gaming, creative, and AI applications. Channel inventory remains healthy, and we are gearing up for the holiday season. We began shipping new GeForce RTX AI PCs with up to 321 AI TOPS from ASUS and MSI, with Microsoft's Copilot Plus capabilities anticipated in Q4. These machines harness the power of RTX ray tracing and AI technologies to supercharge gaming, photo and video editing, image generation, and coding. This past quarter, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the GeForce 256, the world's first GPU. The transforming computing graphics to igniting the AI revolution, NVIDIA's GPUs have been the driving force behind some of the most consequential technologies of our time. Moving to ProViz. Revenue of $486 million was up 7% sequentially and 17% year on year.
So if you guys aren't catching on, they are up in every single category from gaming to data centers, GPUs, graphics, design, everything.
AI is emerging as a powerful demand driver, including autonomous vehicle simulation, generative AI model prototyping for productivity-related use cases, and generative AI content creation in media and entertainment. Moving to automotive. Revenue was a record $449 million, up 30% sequentially and up 72% year on year. Strong growth was driven by self-driving ramps of Nvidia Orin and robust end market demand for NEVs. Volvo Cars is rolling out its fully electric SUV built on Nvidia Orin and Drive OS. Okay, moving to the rest of the P&L. GAAP gross margin was 74.6% and non-GAAP gross margin was 75%.
They're up
Down
2%.
sequentially, primarily driven by a mix
2%
shift of
since
the H100
they
systems
just
to more
started the
complex
earnings
and
call.
higher cost systems within data center. Sequentially, GAAP operating expenses and non-GAAP operating expenses were up 9% due to higher compute, infrastructure, and engineering development costs for new product introductions. In Q3, we returned $11.2 billion to shareholders in the form of share repurchases and cash dividends. Well, let me turn to the outlook for the fourth quarter. Total revenue is expected to be $37.5 billion, plus or minus 2%, which incorporates continued demand for Hopper architecture and the initial ramp of our Blackwell products. While demand is greatly exceed supply, we are on track to exceed our previous Blackwell revenue estimate.
All right, so guys, outside of their growth that they've seen, they're saying we have demand for 2025 from all these big tech companies, and this demand is bigger than our supply by a lot. And they're saying we're now going to project, I think it was like 10% increase by quarter one, 2025, or sorry, quarter four. So keep that in mind. You're probably going to see increased orders over the next few weeks as companies, again, gear up for 2025 AI boom. And so the tech and AI boom and what we're seeing is still getting started. And I think that's really important. I think being on calls like this and really hearing firsthand what the companies are seeing is important. This seems a lot more optimistic than the company I heard on Semiconductor, for example. I think they beat their earnings, but when they were talking about it, guys, they were not as optimistic as this. They were saying, well, automotive is kind of slowed our demand, but they were only supplying for Volkswagen, right? So now you have that happening.
Infrastructure company. Our investments include building data centers for
And so the data center focus is a really big piece.
GAAP and non-GAAP other income and expenses are expected to be an income of approximately $400 million, excluding gains and losses from non-affiliated investments. GAAP and non-GAAP tax rates are expected to be 16.5%, plus or minus 1%, excluding any discrete items. Further financial details are included in the CFO commentary and other information available on our IR websites. In closing, let me highlight upcoming events for the financial community. We will be attending the UBS Global Technology and AI Conference on December 3rd in Scottsdale. Please join us at CES in Las Vegas, where Jensen will deliver a keynote on January 6th. And we will host a Q&A session for financial analysts the next day on January 7th. Our earnings call to discuss results for the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025 is scheduled for February 26, 2025. We will now open the call for questions. Operator, can you poll for questions, please?
At this time, I would like to remind everyone in order to ask a question, press star, then the number one on your telephone keypad.
I got this.
We'll pause.
I got this really good idea, guys. For those of you guys that would like to go to CES and see Jensen live, and would like to hear about tech and AI in Las Vegas, I believe it was. If you want to join my email list down below, get the free Robinhood Legend guide. It's that first link, and I will make sure I might hold an event for a bunch of traders and investors that are all invested in tech and AI. And I'd love to do like an Airbnb thing where we can get our subscribers together. We can all talk and invest in tech, and I can give you guys a bunch of great resources. I would love to do that. If you're interested, just go grab that free guide down below. It's for Robinhood Legend, even if you don't want the guide. But then you'll be on my email list, so I make sure that you get the invites to Vegas if we do that. So let's get back into it. I want to hear the questions that we have.
That it continues to scale. What we're learning, however, is that it's not enough. That we've now discovered two other ways to scale. One is post-training scaling. Of course, the first generation of post-training was reinforcement learning human feedback, but now we have reinforcement learning AI feedback and all forms of synthetic data generated data that assists in post-training scaling. And one of the biggest events and one of the most exciting developments is Strawberry, ChatGPT o1, OpenAI's o1, which does inference time scaling, or what's called test time scaling. The longer it thinks, the better and higher quality answer it produces. And it considers approaches like chain of thought and multi-path planning and all kinds of techniques necessary to reflect and so on and so forth. And it's intuitively, it's a little bit like us doing thinking in our head before we answer a question. And so we now have three ways of scaling, and we're seeing all three ways of scaling. And as a result of that, the demand for our infrastructures is really great. You see now that at the tail end of the last generation of foundation models, we're at about 100,000 hoppers. The next generation starts at 100,000 Blackwells. And so that kind of gives you a sense of where the industry is moving with respect to pre-training scaling, post-training scaling, and then now, very importantly, inference time scaling. And so the demand is really great for all of those reasons. But remember, simultaneously, we're seeing inference really starting to scale up for our company. We are the largest inference platform in the world today because our install base is so large, and everything that was trained on Amperes and Hoppers inference incredibly on Amperes and Hoppers. And as we move to Blackwells for training foundation models, it leaves behind it, a large install base of extraordinary infrastructure for inference. And so we're seeing inference demand go up. We're seeing inference time scaling go up. We see the number of AI native companies continue to grow. And of course, we're starting to see enterprise adoption of agentic AI really is the latest rage. And so we're seeing a lot of demand coming from a lot of different places.
Your next question comes from the line of Toshiya Hari of Goldman Sachs. Your line is open.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the question. Jensen, you executed the mask change earlier this year. There were some reports over the weekend about some heating issues. On the back of this, we've had investors ask about your ability to execute to the roadmap you presented at GTC this year, with Ultra coming out next year and the transition to Rubin in 26. Can you sort of speak to that? And some investors are questioning that. So if you can sort of speak to your ability to execute on time, that would be super helpful. And then a quick part B on supply constraints. Is it a multitude of componentry that's causing this, or is it specifically, CoWoS, HBM? Is the supply constraints, are the supply constraints getting better? Are they worsening? Any sort of color on that would be super helpful as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. So let's see. Back to the first question. Blackwell production is in full steam. In fact, as Colette mentioned earlier, we will deliver this quarter more Blackwells than we had previously estimated. And so the supply chain team is doing an incredible job working with our supply partners to increase Blackwell, and we're going to continue to work hard to increase Blackwell through next year. It is the case that demand exceeds our supply, and that's expected as we're in the beginning.
So as you guys can see, I have this marked up here. I just marked it up so that I'm going to see that I put that green line, which is about 1.9%. And I'm imagining it's going to go up to that dotted line at the top, which that's just kind of the markup that I have for Nvidia right now. So it's been a great call. I think there's a lot of great value that's provided. Now we're hearing about the demand for Blackwell, which is their new product.
Systems that are being stood up by Dell and CoreWeave. I think you saw systems from Oracle stood up. You have systems from Microsoft, and they're about to preview their Grace Blackwell systems. You have systems that are at Google. And so all of these CSPs are racing to be first. The engineering that we do with them is, as you know, rather complicated. And the reason for that is because although we build full stack and full infrastructure, we disaggregate all of this AI supercomputer, and we integrate it into all of the custom data centers in architectures around the world. That integration process is something we've done several generations now. We're very good at it, but there's still a lot of engineering that happens at this point.
So in other words, as AI advances, they're also using it to compound that advancement to run their own company with AI, essentially.
It's greater than our previous estimates. With respect to the supply chain, there are 7 different chips, 7 custom chips that we built in order for us to deliver the Blackwell systems. The Blackwell systems go in air-cooled or liquid-cooled, NVLink 8 or NVLink 72, or NVLink 8, NVLink 36, NVLink 72. We have x86 or Grace, and the integration of all of those systems into the world's data centers is nothing short of a miracle. And so the component supply chain necessary to ramp at the scale, you have to go back and take a look at how much Blackwell was shipped last quarter, which was 0. And in terms of how much Blackwell total systems will ship this quarter, which is measured in billions, the ramp is incredible. And so almost every company in the world seems to be involved in our supply chain. And we've got great partners, everybody from, of course, TSMC and Amphenol, the connector company, incredible company, Vertiv and SK Hynix and Micron, Spill Amcor, and KYEC, and there's Foxconn and the factories that they've built, and Quanta and WeWin, and Dell and HP and Supermicro, Lenovo, and
he did shout out Supermicro, which is interesting because they recently decreased
quite incredible.
Their
Quanta, and I'm
their
sure I've missed
partnership supply with them.
partners that are involved in the ramping of Blackwell, which I really appreciate. And so, anyways, I think we're in great shape with respect to the Blackwell ramp at this point. And then lastly,
And I just
your
sent
question
them,
about
guys,
our execution of
in
our roadmap.
I sent him down in the chat. If you guys want to see those, a few of the companies that stood out to me, he mentioned a few, but they're down there in the chat. So if you guys want to look at those companies, I don't know if I spelled all of them right, but hopefully that's helpful.
And do so at X factors at a time. We're reducing the cost of training, we're reducing the cost of inferencing, we're reducing the cost of AI so that it could be much more accessible. But the other factor that's very important to note is that when there's a data center of some fixed size, and a data center always is of some fixed size, it could be, of course, tens of megawatts in the past, and now it's, most data centers are now 100 megawatts to several hundred megawatts, and we're planning on gigawatt data centers. It doesn't really matter how large the data centers are. The power is limited. And when you're in the power limited data center, the highest performance per watt translates directly into the highest revenues for our partners. And so on the one hand, our annual roadmap reduces cost. But on the other hand, because our perf per watt is so good compared to anything out there, we generate for our customers the greatest possible revenues. And so that annual rhythm is really important to us, and we have every intentions of continuing to do that. And everything's on track as far as I know.
That's what we needed to hear.
Your next question comes from the line of Timothy Arcuri.
Everything's on track as far as I know.
Yes, your line is open.
Thanks a lot. I'm wondering if you can talk about the trajectory of how Blackwell's going to ramp this year. I know, Jensen, you did just talk about Blackwell being better than I think you had said several billions of dollars in January. It sounds like you're going to do more than that. But I think in recent months also you said that Blackwell crosses over Hopper in the April quarter. So I guess I had two questions. First of all, is that still the right way to think about it, that Blackwell will cross over Hopper in April? And then, Colette, you kind of talked about Blackwell bringing down gross margin to the low, to the low 70s as it ramps. So I guess if April is the crossover, is that the worst of the pressure on gross margin? So you're going to be kind of in the low 70s as soon as April. I'm just wondering if you can sort of shape that for us. Thanks.
Why don't you start?
Sure. Let me first start with your question, Tim. Thank you, regarding our gross margins. And we discussed that our gross margins, as we are ramping Blackwell in the very beginning, and the many different configurations, the many different chips that we are bringing to market, we are going to focus on making sure we have the best experience for our customers as they stand that up. We will start growing into our gross margins, but we do believe those will be in the low 70s in that first part of the ramp. So you're correct. As you look at the quarters following after that, we will start increasing our gross margins, and we hope to get to the mid-70s quite quickly as part of that ramp.
Hopper demand will continue through next year, surely the first several quarters of the next year. And meanwhile, we'll ship more Blackwells next quarter than this, and we'll ship more Blackwells the quarter after that than our first quarter. And so that kind of puts it in perspective. We are really at the beginnings of two fundamental shifts in computing that is really quite significant. The first is moving from coding that runs on CPUs to machine learning that creates neural networks that runs on GPUs. And that fundamental shift from coding to machine learning is widespread at this point. There are no companies who are not going to do machine learning. And so machine learning is also what enables generative AI. And so on the one hand, the first thing that's happening is $1 trillion worth of computing systems and data centers around the world is now being modernized for machine learning. On the other hand,
interesting, guys. We've seen that they beat their earnings, right? they've beat their earnings significantly, right? I think it was 81 cents a share, earnings per share, and they were expected 75 or something like that. So they beat their earnings, their revenue, they beat. Their demand is great. Their supply is a little low, but they're saying that they're going to be able to meet the demand, so that's good. Stock is okay, right? We closed right here at 146. Extreme volatility down to 138, recovering to 146 again. Now back down to 142 at a previous support here. Are we going to see them continue to rally upwards? I mean, RSI is looking oversold. MACD is looking like on the oversold side. Are we going to see them continue their upward direction? I'm seeing the technicals not really point, but volume's lower at this point after hours than it was right when they started. But you got to ask yourself, is this one of those times? Because you have to look at AMD as an example. We saw AMD, they reported positive earnings and then they sold off like 25%, right? Are we going to see that with Nvidia? I don't know. You have to hope, right? If you're an Nvidia holder saying, man, we have this support here at 142, almost 143. Are they going to hold and continue that upward direction? As an Nvidia holder myself, I'm saying, let's see it continue that upward direction. Bloomberg said we're going to see an 8% swing either up or down. I'm saying, hey, if that's the case, we've seen a 2% decrease since market close. Are we going to see it really continue that upward direction? If so, we're still looking to see another 10% gain on the stock over the next, 18 hours, 12 hours. So, or I guess 18 hours. So that's something, it's like, if it's staying true, the demand's good. The other companies like Apple and Google and Meta and Tesla are investing still, especially Microsoft with OpenAI, into Nvidia. Are we going to see them? So financials look good. That's what I'm going to say. Technicals, we saw it pull back. It's a healthy pullback, right? It's a healthy pullback down here. But we're at this see this resistance, previous support. That's where we're at right now. And now it's kind of at that support, or if we see it bounce, that's a good indication it's going to continue its upward direction. But let's get back into what they're saying here in the earnings call.
If they're ready to build a data center tomorrow, they ought to build it for a future of machine learning and generative AI, because they have plenty of old data centers. And so what's going to happen over the course of next, X number of years, and let's assume that over the course of 4 years, the world's data centers could be modernized as we grow into IT. As you know, IT continues to grow about 20-30% a year, let's say. And so let's say by 2030, the world's data centers for computing is call it a couple $1 trillion. We have to grow into that. We have to modernize the data center from coding to machine learning. That's number one. The second part of it is generative AI. And we're now producing a new type of capability that the world's never known, a new market segment that the world's never had. If you look at OpenAI, it didn't replace anything. It's something that's completely brand new. It's in a lot of ways, as when the iPhone came, it was completely brand new. It wasn't really replacing anything. And so we're going to see more and more companies like that, and they're going to create and generate out of their services essentially intelligence. Some of it would be digital artist intelligence, like Runway. Some of it would be basic intelligence, like OpenAI. Some of it would be legal intelligence, like Harvey. Digital marketing intelligence, like writers, so on and so forth.
Financial intelligence as well, guys. And one thing I want to see here, we're in the golden ratio here, right? So if we're really going to see an AI boom continue, this would be this is the low. So that's where I started from. and we're going back to previous levels with the top. Golden ratio of 0.618 is where you buy. We're looking like in the buy ratio just about with Nvidia if it's going to continue that bull run up to 150 or above.
To modernize IT, modernize computing, number one, and then number two, create these AI factories that are going to be for a new industry for the production of artificial intelligence.
Your next question comes from the line of Stacy Ragson of Bernstein Research. Your line is open.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my questions. Colette, I had a clarification and a question for you. The clarification, just when you say low 70s gross margins, is 73.5 count as low 70s, or do you have something else in mind? And for my question, you're guiding total revenues, and so I mean total data center revenues in the next quarter must be up, quote unquote, several $1 billion. But it sounds like Blackwell now should be up more than that. But you also said Hopper was still strong. So like, is Hopper down sequentially next quarter? And if it is, like, why? Is it because of the supply constraints? China's been pretty strong. Is China kind of rolling off a bit into Q4? So any color you can give us on sort of the Blackwell ramp and the Blackwell versus Hopper behavior into Q4 would be really helpful. Thank you.
That's hilarious.
So first, starting on your first question there, Stacy, regarding our gross margin and define low. Low, of course, is below the mids, and let's say we might be at 71, maybe about 72, 72 and a half. We're going to be in that range. We could be higher than that as well. We're just going to have to see how it comes through. We do want to make sure that we are ramping and continuing that improvement, the improvement in terms of our yields.
It's funny, guys. What I'm seeing is, and there was a funny comment actually in our live stream. Somebody said, money's going into Bitcoin. That's why we aren't seeing the push up. It's a combination of that with probably some technicals working. And this is what happens, right? You have a company, and it's what I said pre-close. I was like, we might just see it consolidate and not really do much. And the reason why is because, guys, if we look at Nvidia, I mean, they're at an all-time high. Are we going to see them continue up? I mean, based on these earnings, yeah, it would make a lot of sense. But when you look at the technicals there, you have to ask yourself, well, how much, it would be healthy to have a little bit of a pullback. I don't think it's going to last. I think that we obviously, just by the likes of Microsoft and Apple and Meta and Tesla pouring so much money into Nvidia for 2025's AI infrastructure growth, makes sense that we're going to see it continue up. But again, that's just kind of some of that downward pressure. Also, Bitcoin's in a rally. That could be a reason why. But you're not seeing that explosive post earnings growth that you might normally see here in tech.
Inference to outgrow training in the next kind of 12 months.
Just to update, we're still in questions right now.
Our hopes and dreams is that someday the world does a ton of inference, and that's when AI has really succeeded. Is when every single company is doing inference inside their companies for the marketing department and forecasting department and supply chain group and their legal department and engineering, of course, and coding, of course, and so we hope that every company is doing inference 24/7. And
Jensen starts talking about his dream and inference and what he sees in the future, and you can see the stock just start to go boop boop whoop. I love it.
Every aspect of your computer experience, from using Outlook to PowerPointing, or when you're sitting there with Excel, you're constantly generating tokens. And every time you read a PDF, open a PDF, it generated a whole bunch of tokens. One of my favorite applications is Notebook LM. This Google application that came out. I use the living daylights out of it just because it's fun. And I put every PDF, every archive paper into it just to listen to it, as well as scanning through it. And so I think that's the goal, is to train these models so that people use it. And there's now a whole new era of AI, if you will, a whole new genre of AI called physical AI. Just as large language models understand the human language and the thinking process, if you will. Physical AI understands the physical world, and it understands the meaning of the structure, and understands what's sensible and what's not, and what could happen and what wouldn't. And not only does it understand, but it can predict, roll out a short future. That capability is incredibly valuable for industrial AI and robotics, and so that's fired up so many AI native companies and robotics companies and physical AI companies that you're probably hearing about, and it's really the reason why we built Omniverse. Omniverse is so that we can enable these AIs to be created and learn in Omniverse, and learn from synthetic data generation and reinforcement learning, physics feedback instead of human feedback. It's now physics feedback. To have these capabilities, Omniverse was created so that we can enable physical AI. And so that the goal is
See a
to
1%
generate
recovery.
tokens. The goal is to inference, and we're starting to see that growth happening. So I'm super excited about that. Now, let me just say one more thing. Inference is super hard. And the reason why inference is super hard is because you need the accuracy to be high on the one hand. You need the throughput to be high so that the cost could be as low as possible, but you also need the low latency to be low. And computers that are high throughput as well as low latency is incredibly hard to build. And these applications have long context.
Now, I'm kind of a tech junkie. I love talking tech, right? But I feel like sometimes when you're on an earnings call, and maybe I'm a critic. I love Nvidia as a company. I've invested in for many years, but I'm like, sometimes when you're watching live how the market's reacting to what they say on the earnings call, I notice that when they talk like about the dream and the future and how things are looking, it goes up. And then when they start talking like really techy, like all about the tech, that's, and this is totally not fact proven. It's just my own observation and my experience of what I see, is that like the more like techy, it seems like it gets less of a buying reaction. And it makes sense. I mean, in a short-term emotional trade, when there's things that are maybe more emotional that he says, it might, increase more, as opposed to things that are, very, I don't know. That's just what I'm observing. I think it's so funny.
Phenomenal.
Alrighty. So
Your next question comes from the line of
There we are.
Aaron Rakers of Wells Fargo. Your line is open.
Yeah, thanks for taking the question. I wanted to ask you, as we kind of focus on the Blackwell cycle and think about the data center business, when I look at the results this last quarter, Colette, you mentioned that obviously the networking business was down about 15% sequentially, but then your comments were that you were seeing very strong demand. You mentioned also that you had multiple cloud, CSP design wins for these large scale clusters. So I'm curious if you could unpack what's going on in the networking business and where maybe you've seen some constraints, and just your confidence in the pace of Spectrum X progressing to that multiple billions of dollars that you previously had talked about. Thank you.
Let's first start with the networking. The growth year over year is tremendous. And our focus since the beginning of our acquisition of Mellanox has really been about building together the work that we do in terms of in the data center. The networking is such a critical part of that. Our ability to sell our networking with many of our systems that we are doing in data center is continuing to grow and do quite well. So this quarter is just a slight dip down, and we're going to be right back up in terms of growing. They're getting ready for Blackwell and more systems that will be using.
Jeez, that's really tight. Guys, just to mention, she's not saying the overall earnings. She's talking about specifically the networks, and that they are up year over year, but that quarter they had dropped a little bit. Overall earnings positive, overall revenue positive.
Colette, on the last earnings call, you mentioned that sovereign demand is in low double-digit billions. Can you provide an update on that?
What is cap?
The supply constrained situation in gaming, is that because you're shifting your supply towards data center?
So first, starting in terms of sovereign AI, such an important part of growth, something that has really surfaced with the onset of generative AI and building models in the individual countries around the world. And we see a lot of them, and we talked about a lot of them in the call today, and the work that they are doing. So our sovereign AI and our pipeline going forward is still absolutely intact, as those are working to build these foundational models in their own language, in their own culture, and working in terms of the enterprises within those countries. And I think you'll continue to see this be a growth opportunities that you may see with our regional clouds that are being stood up, and or those that are focusing in terms of AI factories for many parts of the sovereign AI.
Short it tomorrow morning? What are you watching? Are we watching the same earnings call?
Your second question that you asked regarding gaming. So our game.
If there's any short, it's going to be in the first maybe 10 minutes of market open. And then after that, I would see a recovery.
Supply, given what we saw selling through, was moving quite fast. Now, the challenge that we have is how fast could we get that supply getting ready into the market for this quarter. Not to worry, I think we'll be back on track with more supply as we turn the corner into the new calendar year. We're just going to be tight for this quarter.
Your next question comes from the line of Ben Reitzes of Melius Research. Your line is open.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot for the question. I wanted to ask Colette and Jensen, with regard to sequential growth. So
you smell a
very
market
strong
crash?
sequential growth.
Yeah, man. You and me both. You and me both, man.
So your comments on Blackwell imply that we reaccelerate from there as you get more supply. Just in the first half.
Yes. Still, I live stream our trading sessions every morning at Market Open. And that second link down below.
Change in administration that's going to take place here in the U.S. and the China situation. Have you gotten any sense or any conversations about, tariffs or anything with regard?
I really want to hear this China, actually, how that's going to affect tariffs.
But wondering if you had any thoughts there. Thanks so much.
We got one quarter at a time.
We are working right now on the quarter that we're in and building what we need to ship in terms of Blackwell. We have every supplier on the planet working seamlessly with us to do that. And once we get to next quarter, we'll help you understand in terms of that ramp that we'll see to the next quarter going after that.
Whatever the new administration decides, we will of course support the administration, and that's our the highest mandate. And then after that, do the best we can, and just as we always do. And so we have to simultaneously, and we will comply with any regulation that comes along fully, and support our customers to the best of our abilities, and compete in the marketplace. We'll do all of these three things simultaneously.
Your final question comes from the line of Pierre Ferragu of New Street Research. Your line is open.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. Jensen, you mentioned in your comments, you have the pre-trainings, the actual language models, and you have reinforcement learning that becomes more and more important in training and in inference as well. And then you have inference itself. And I was wondering if you have a sense, like a high-level typical sense of out of an overall AI ecosystem, like maybe one of your clients or one of the large models that are out there. Today, how much of the compute goes into each of these buckets? How much for the pre-training, how much for the reinforcement, and how much into inference today? Do you have any sense for how it's splitting and where the growth is the most important as well?
Well, today it's vastly in pre-training of foundation model. Because as you know, post-training, the new technologies are just coming online. And whatever you could do in pre-training and post-training, you would try to do so that the inference costs could be as low as possible for everyone. However, there are only so many things that you could do a priori. And so you'll always have to do on-the-spot thinking and in context thinking and reflection. And so I think that the fact that all three are scaling is actually very sensible based on where we are. And in the area of foundation model, now we have multimodality foundation models, and the amount of petabytes of video that these foundation models are going to be trained on is incredible. And so my expectation is that for the foreseeable future, we're going to be scaling pre-training, post-training, as well as inference time scaling, and which is the reason why I think we're going to need more and more compute, and we're going to have to drive as hard as we can to keep increasing the performance.
Why do you smell a market crash tomorrow? I'm curious. Seems like almost what might be more common, what would be, I think at this point, what would be more possible for us as far as quote crash or recession, which we could see, we could see that happen, and we could see, I think there was talk of potentially tightening down. The Fed was tightening down and things like that, which could happen. I almost feel like there's more of a chance that we would see a melt up, that everybody would want to own assets. Everybody would want to own things like stocks and real estate and gold and silver and Bitcoin. And that would be the best decision in our current economy and the best way to hedge against what's going to be more inflation in my eyes. And I would say if you're thinking about a market crash, you might actually be better off thinking about a melt up, and that you might consider buying assets, like buy into these tech stocks and these tech assets, buy into companies like Tesla, companies like Nvidia and Apple and Meta, because they have digital cash flows. It's not just speculation. There's a reason they're the top 7 company in the world. And buy into things like real estate that are tangible, or gold, or Bitcoin. And to me, it's like when people are saying the market crash is coming tomorrow or what have you, regardless if there's a crash or what have you, or there's not a crash, or there's a melt up and we have big inflation and asset prices soar, like regardless of what happens, to me, like this is why I have such an emphasis on buying easy, profitable tech and AI assets, because I think that that's like, and why I just made a video about real estate and how I'm doing a project here in Northern California where I'm flipping a house, and and then like buying crypto and things like that. I think if there's any suspect of a crash, you'd almost want to just buy assets. I mean, I think that's the smartest thing to do, is to buy tangible things that are assets. That's my little rant. I don't even know if that guy's still in our live stream. And I totally appreciate it. I appreciate you asking the question or making the prediction. You know, free flow of ideas and exchange are here. I just feel like no matter what, you would be in the best position to buy things that appreciate rather than depreciate over the long term.
Deliver full stack and full infrastructure. Let us serve the entire multi-trillion-dollar AI and robotics opportunities ahead. From every hyperscale cloud, enterprise private cloud, to sovereign regional AI clouds, on-prem to industrial edge and robotics. Thanks for joining us today, and catch up next time.
Awesome. That concludes our conference call, and that concludes what was the earnings reports. Now we're seeing the stock kind of push up after the earnings. I've had this here kind of just going up and down, kind of seeing what that recovery looks like back to 145. Again, they had positive earnings and they had positive revenue. So earnings per share looked good. We saw it validate that critical support that I pointed out earlier today, which is good because after that extreme volatility before the earnings call, that was just something that I was waiting for. So I'm glad it validated that. And again, now we're kind of seeing it push back up right around 144.20. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys would like to watch me trade live tomorrow at market open, I would encourage you to simply take a look at Stockmates, that second link down below, and I'll be there at market open trading live. What will be quite the interesting AI and tech approach into the market open. I think it's going to be quite a volatile time. There'll be a lot of opportunities in the market. And of course, we want to buy assets in a times like these that are backed by great work, great technology, and hopefully you guys are able to make more educated and profitable investment decisions by tuning into the channel. If you enjoyed, do consider hitting the like button and subscribing. And again, if you want to watch me trade live tomorrow at market open, it's that second link, Stockmate, down below. We have an awesome discount for the holidays. See you guys in the next video. Take care.